Lords of War, Orcs vs. Dwarves, Volume 1. Written by Martin Vaux and read by Tom Barratt. Part 3. Out of the Gloom. The Shankers returned by nightfall, and only then did the party halt their march. Taking turns, the two goblins whispered into the old general's ears. Rumours, secrets, trickeries and plans. When they had nothing more to say, Gonky Longtooth turned to his assembled rabble and smiled. "Not far now, boys," he announced, his old voice deep and rich and croaking. Amongst the rest of his brigade there were hoots and screams of excitement. "For now," continued the aged orc, "we got two things to do." He paced in front of the group, his footfalls sending ripples shooting through the stagnant marsh water. "Horseskiller, you lead the rabble west. Follow this gobbo here." He indicated one of the Shankers, pointing with a thick, long-nailed finger. "You boys run along now. Have yourselves some fun." The full complement of goblins and lesser orcs began to follow Ugluk Horsekiller, their quiet, fearless commander. "But not all of you are going," said the general. "Bighorn, Flesh Ripper, you're staying with me. We'll need two of them most strongest Deathbringers too." The enormous bulk of Snafu Bighorn shuffled forward. Vanak Flesh Ripper was by his side, the wiry, smaller orc twitching with an awkward energy. Two mighty orc Deathbringers stepped forward also, each to one flank of the other goblin Shanker. "Now," said Gonky Longtooth, a vicious smile splitting on one side of his face, exposing his blackening blade-like teeth. "Us lot, we got harder scams to play out." He nodded towards the goblin Shanker. "Lead us," he said. The party of 6 then spun on their heels and continued the journey north. As they trod, icy mud clung to their feet and, in some cases, boots. It sucked and clawed at their toes, sending stinking jets of putrid air up into their twisted green faces. A thick mist hung in the air all around them, leaking out of the darkness of the night and into the dim halos of orange fire which spilled from their torches. Onward they trudged. For minutes or hours it was hard to tell. The Shanker was leading, running ahead and running back from time to time, whispering more tales and secrets into the ear of the old orc at the head of the group. There was no other conversation then, just the march. When the mist began to thin, the orcs noted the ground becoming firmer too, the waters around them suddenly seeming less deep. Before long they had emerged from the clinging gloom of the marsh completely, finding themselves in breathlessly dark, endless-seeming open ground. Gonky Longtooth stopped walking. "Tell me now, Snafu, what do you see?" Snafu Bighorn sighed deeply, the nervous opening and closing of his huge wet mouth making a quiet, guttural, chomping sound which echoed through the still night. The hulking orc stared out into the dark, frowning, the muscles of his wide face bearing down on his tiny black eyes. "I see grass," said Snafu, "and earth, and stones, and mud." "Good, good," replied Gonky. "What else? What else?" "I see more mud," he said, "and a big rock, and over there I sees trees." Vanak Flesh Ripper spat on the still damp earth. "Dirty, stinking trees," he said. "I hates 'em." Now," said Gonky, interrupting. "We all hates trees." As he continued, his voice became calming, immediately rich, dominant, and somehow masterful. "But we ain't here to like trees. We's here to use 'em, to break 'em, to smash 'em, to burn 'em, to bind 'em, to tie 'em, to strap 'em, to cut 'em and make 'em." The old general started to walk again, now in the direction of the woodland. The Deathbringers, 2 commanders, and solitary Shanker followed suit. As he moved, the general started to walk faster, his armor beginning to clunk and rattle. Snafu Bighorn struggled to keep up the pace. Before long, Gonky Longtooth had broken into a full-blown run, his footfalls thundering on the earth. Each stride he took was long and strong, driving him faster and faster towards his goal. By his side, Vanek Fleshripper, running with all of his speed and spirit, found himself struggling to keep up. But how could that be? The old orc was sick and dying. He was weak at the knees. Such pace while wearing that huge suit of armor, it wasn't possible. And yet it was happening. Happening because Gonky Longtooth was biting down hard, grinding his teeth, ignoring the pain. The burning, white-hot, agonizing pain. Pain was for the weak, he told himself, and he was old, but he wasn't weak. The 6 figures continued their run, the cool night air whipping through the goblin shanker's wild, filthy hair. The sun began to rise, turning the skyline blue and purple like a blossoming bruise. "Come on, lads," barked Gonky as his legs drove him onwards. "Pick up the pace. We want to be in cover by sunup, 'cause there's going to be eyes in all places round here." Some way behind the rest of the group, the mighty Snafu Bighorn trundled along, leaping and tripping across the uneven, broken earth. When they had reached the tree line, the orcs stopped and listened, falling to one knee within the forest's dark embrace. In the shadowy undergrowth, insects clicked and bristled, rodents rustled, snakes squirmed, pushing their warmthless forms through the scrub. The floor of the forest was dark as pitch, the rich earth humming with life. "Too many ears in here," said the shanker, "all of 'em listening." Gonky Longtooth stood and without turning gave out his next set of orders. "Fleshripper, you and the shanker go hunting. Kill me deers, kill me bears, kill me big things with fur on, and skin we can use." The 2 most nimble of the company sidled off into the forest, stalking their way into the richness of the murky shade. "Us 4," said Gonky, "is going to start cutting these trees down. We need a bunch of 'em, big ones. And when we got some we like, we's going to light some flames on 'em and make 'em ready." The Deathbringers drew their mighty great axes and raised them, each picking a separate tree to make a meal of first. Snafu didn't need a weapon. He started by grabbing a tree in a bear hug, his huge arms reaching almost round the entire trunk of the tree. Next, he started to lift, to pull, to twist, to wrench. The wood of the tree began to squeal and crack, splintering and yawning ever so slowly apart. The huge orc kept pulling, digging in with his claws and moving the whole tree backwards and forwards, left and then right, as if engaged in an awful, life-crushing dance. Gonky, meanwhile, drew one of his swords, taking it in 2 hands. He inhaled, closing his one good eye, and then pushed the blade away from him with staggering force. The ground shook, and there was suddenly the sound of branches snapping, of the huge tree's mass shifting. High in the canopy, birds flew up and away as Gonky's tree came spiraling down towards the earth. When the huge mass of wood and leaves stopped moving, it was clear to see that near its base there was a clean diagonal line, where the general's blade had passed clean through it. Gonky smiled again with that vicious one-sided grin. By tonight, they would be building war machines, and tomorrow there would be blood.